Hi, everyone. I see people are entering, which is great. So I just opened up the chat. I'll say something in the chat. If you come in, just say hello in the chat, just so, or even just a few people, so I know that it's working and you can hear and see me. Okay. Hi, everyone. I think I set this up so that you should, when you come in, you should be muted. If for whatever reason you're not, if you could just double check. It's just, I don't mind if people want to unmute and ask questions, but for the majority of the time, if you're not asking a question, it'd be easier to be unmuted because then we won't hear any background noises. Okay, so, but if anybody could just say something in the chat, want to make sure that you can hear and see me, that would be great.
We can hear and see you.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, sorry, I am just a lot of people letting people in from the wait room. I think that this meeting was, well, I didn't set it up the right way because people aren't going to be able to just come in. Okay, so let's just give everybody just 2 more minutes. And I see people are from all over, South Carolina. Anyone else want to share where you're from? South Carolina, North Carolina. I see New York City, Colorado, Tennessee. Love it. Wow. Flagstone, Arizona. And also just tell me, if you don't mind, are most of you families with high school seniors, or are you have high school juniors or younger? It doesn't matter. I'm just kind of curious. Okay, I'm seeing it makes sense, mostly between high school juniors and seniors. So that's great. Okay. Okay, so I might get distracted because I have to admit people from the waiting room, but let's get started. So I'm Debbie Schwartz. If all of you guys don't know me by now, I started Road to College a few years ago, and then also started the Paying for College 101 group. And I'm assuming that's where a lot of you guys have been and joined and, you know, get information and share information. So I appreciate everybody who's a member there. I'll just give you 2 seconds about my background. I got involved in this space because I actually spent a lot of years in the finance world, in financial services. I worked for companies like Fidelity Investments, Vanguard, Chase credit cards. And I took time off. I have 3 kids, and I took time off, and an old boss of mine asked me to come back and do some consulting work. And one of the clients was Citizens Bank student lending. And I just got to see what was happening in this whole space of paying for college, borrowing for college admissions. I had my own kids that were going through the process. And I just personally felt that parents, you and me, were not getting enough of the right information. That's when I started writing articles, and that grew into the Facebook group, and that grew, quite honestly, into seeing what people needed more help with, and understanding how we could gather data and crowdsource information and create tools for parents that could help them make these decisions and find the information that they needed. So that's kind of been my quick journey about how I'm here and how I'm in this space. But I actually love working with parents, and I love managing the Facebook group. And I love, honestly, that we can all come together and help each other. And that's, to me, really kind of where the power of the Facebook group comes in. So I'm going to get started. So today is to talk about merit scholarships. I've done this presentation a few times. I've actually usually started off explaining about merit aid and merit scholarships. And then talk about the tool that we created. I'm going to start the opposite way because I always change the tool, and there's a lot of questions there. And then we'll kind of backtrack and talk maybe a little bit more broadly about merit scholarships. But I love doing this as a meeting so I can kind of see people's faces. Feel free. You can type your question in the chat. I'm not going to look at the Q&A, hopefully, but actually on here, there isn't a Q&A. It's just chats. But if you want to, you can also unmute yourself and ask a question. So feel free to do it either way. So with that in mind, I'm going to jump straight to College Insights, which is the tool I created based on kind of the background that I just told you, because I felt that as I got deeper into the space, I knew that there was a lot of data out there. I kind of like, I don't know if you can see my hands. I'm kind of saying out there because there were a lot of different places where the data existed, but there wasn't one place that pulled it all together. And more importantly, there wasn't one place that could make it easy for parents and students to just kind of say, hey, this is who I am as a student. These are my stats. And maybe I'm interested in these majors. And where can I get the best merit scholarships? So there wasn't a place that could do that reverse lookup. And so that's why I gave a stab and tried to create, and I did create College Insights. So I'm going to go straight to that and share it. I'm going to do some samples of how I use it, how other people have been using it. If you, feel free if you have any questions, and then we'll go back and I'll talk more broadly about merit scholarships and what's happening in this space for this year. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay. Let me just pull up the chat again. And if you guys could just confirm to me that you are seeing my screen. Just want to make sure that I shared this correctly. Okay, good, good, good. So if you were to come to College Insights, and here's you guys can also try it out along with me as, oops, I'm doing this. Hold on, I put this to the wrong group of people. Okay. So if you were to come to College Insights, this is what you would see. It looks like there's, maybe not information there, but there is. You just have to start searching. I wanted to show you what it looks like when you come and you don't necessarily haven't logged in, because anybody who goes there now, you get 3 free searches. So, and you can use it however you want. Why don't you let me go through some of the searches, and then you can decide how you want to maybe use your free searches. Okay, sorry, I'm just admitting people. Okay, so I'm going to log in because the system no longer recognizes me as giving me free searches. So I'm going to log in, but this is what it would look like if you came to the site and you would get your free searches. So let me log in. I don't know if you guys use like any of these password programs. I personally think they're great. I would love to get more people using them, but we can talk about that on another time. Okay. So this is going to load, and what this is loading with is data from over 2,000 schools. Again, just do me a favor, make sure if you can every once in a while type in and say, yeah, that what I'm saying coincides with what you're seeing online. I just want to make sure that my screen is sharing properly. Great. Thank you, Joyce. So this is data, as I said, from over 2,000 schools. I'm just going to briefly explain where the data sources are from. There's really three main places. One is the government, and that's called iPads. And in theory, anybody can go and look at that data. It is, you have to kind of like request it in zip files and that type of stuff. But if data is your thing, you should go and look at iPads. It's got, data from really probably 4,000 schools and for many years, and you can do lots of research and analysis with it. It's a great source. If anybody goes to the websites called College Navigator or the College Scorecard, those websites are actually the government websites, and they use the iPads data. So that's one major source of information that we pulled together. The other is the common data set. So somebody said iPads. Let me put it in the chat, IPEDS. Okay. The other source is common data set. And I wish I could see you guys and see if you could raise your hand, but I'm hoping that people know what the common data set is. If not, I will talk about it a little bit later, but I'll give you the quick and dirty of the common data set. It is the data that places like US News and World Report uses, the College Board uses. It's basically, they ask all these colleges to fill out a questionnaire every year. And the questionnaire is in a common format. That's where the word common data set comes from. And they, there's three companies that pull all the data together: the College Board, Peterson's, and US News and World Report. And they pull all that data together and they use it for their purposes, and then they resell it. But the thing about the college data set is, for an individual college, you can Google any college and you can find their common data set. So actually, I'm going to switch for 1 second. Let me stop sharing. I pulled up and I have it here. Hopefully, let's go back to sharing. This is, okay. So I Googled, this is Drexel. I live outside of Philadelphia, so I always use the schools around Philadelphia. So this is Drexel's common data set. All you had to do was put in Drexel common data set. It brings you to the website, the page on the Drexel website that usually a lot of schools list like the common data set for the past, I don't know, 8 or 9 years. And then you just, click on the most recent one. This is from 2019 to 2020. And this format, which I'm showing you, oops, if you guys, this format is really, if you pulled up almost every other college's common data set, this is the exact same format you're going to see it in. Sometimes they present it in a Excel spreadsheet, but a majority of the time it is in this format. Hence, again, the words common data set. So this is both a good source and a not so good source. Here's the great part about why it's a good source. It's actually a ton of really interesting information. Look, I don't know if you can see right now. I'm on this section called C7. It says, and I know this is small, maybe I can increase the size. Okay, C7. It says relative importance of the following academic and non-academic factors in a first year admissions decision. So this section, and I knew it was here, but I stumbled upon it. This section of C7 tells you what the school thinks is important in the admissions process. And there have been people that have kind of done a study, across all the schools, and they write the articles and they say, 70% of schools feel that academic rigor is the most important. And this is where they're getting the information from. So here's Drexel's example. Of course, they're saying academics, and this is pretty common, academic is the most important rigor of the school. So of the school classes that your student took, if an AP was available, did they take the AP? I mean, that's kind of the rigor. Drexel is saying class rank. Actually, as I look at it, this is a little unusual. A lot of colleges are not considering class rank. that's interesting that Drexel is saying it's still very important, because a lot of high schools aren't even giving out class ranks, but so that's another issue. Obviously, they're saying GPA. So you can see everything to do with your student's academic profile from the high school. The GPA is the most important thing to Drexel. SAT, ACTs are second in most important. They're important, but not as important as the academic rigor. Recommendations actually, obviously, are really high for Drexel. You might say like, oh, this all makes sense, and it does, but you will see slight variances from colleges to college. So for example, non-academic, Drexel is saying, an interview is considered. Some schools might have an interview as important. Other schools might have an interview as we're not even considering it at all. So you will see slight, the importance and the factors vary slightly from school to school. I'm just honing in on this, not to kind of talk about what schools find really important or not important in this particular area, but to show you there's actually a lot of really interesting information in the common data set. So I encourage everybody, if there's a school that you're interested, Google the school's name, the words common data set, and pull this up. It might feel a tiny bit overwhelming, but after you've looked at a few common data sets from a few schools, you'll quickly know all the sections are the same. You'll know where you want to kind of hone in. And I think personally, you would find it interesting. Okay, sorry, I lost my chat. I'm going back to see if you guys have any questions. Okay, so Jody's asking, does Naviance use this information? You know what? That's a really good question. I have to admit, I have not been on top of what Naviance is and isn't doing for a while, so I don't know. Obviously, I know that Naviance uses the information from the particular school that you're at, and they do those scattergrams. I would think that Naviance is using some of this information. Well, you know what? Sorry, let me backtrack. I don't know if you're asking, does Naviance use common data set information, or does Naviance use the government data? I would suspect that Naviance is using IPEDS, which is the government data. I am not so sure how much Naviance is using common data set information. I can't say for sure. I will dig into that and see if I can find out. I will also say, if anybody, my kid's school does not use Naviance anymore. They got fed up with it. So I don't have access to a Naviance account. If anybody is willing, I would love to dig in and see what Naviance looks like these days. So that's like we'll say like that's off to the side, but if anybody is willing to email me and maybe do a Zoom and show me the Naviance account these days, I might be able to quickly tell you whether or not they're using common data set information or not. But I'd also be interested just to see what it looks like these days. So that's, I just put that out to anybody. If you're willing to do share your account, I'd love to see it. Okay, and so Jody, thanks. Just message me at debbie@roadtocollege.com and we'll arrange to get together. Okay, I'm switching back to College Insights. Stop share. Let me go back. Share again. Okay, should be back. So I talked about iPads. I talked about common data set information. There's some information here. Honestly, we just scraped. It's related to the test optional schools, which schools were going test optional and not, because all of that was happening so quickly at the last minute. And then the third set piece of information that we have, which is particular to what I've done, is that over the past 2 years, we crowdsourced information of actual college offers. So we asked people in that, February to May timeframe, would you be willing to share with the group? It started off with the group. Would you be willing to share what schools were actually giving you? Because the sources that I just told you about, the government source and common data set, is all self-reported information from the colleges. So that's the college. That's us trusting that the colleges are telling us, their truthful information. But there was no place that where we could see what people were actually getting. So that's what we started to do a few years ago. 2 years ago. And then last year, I did it a little bit more formally, and we created an app called Compare College Offers. And that let people put in their information. It actually did two things. It let people put in all of the offer information that they've been getting from colleges. It helped them to also see how much those offers were really costing them, because you'll see when you get financial aid offers or that the way the colleges present the information, again, varies college to college, and it's not always clear. And sometimes they sneak in a loan, and and you're not quite sure if that's a loan or if that's scholarship money. So we helped people through Compare College Offers. One of the goals was to help people compare all their offers apples to apples, because that was really important. And then if you shared your information, you could then see information from other students at the same schools to see how your offer kind of compared to somebody else. So that's crowdsourced information. We did that for 2 years. We're going to continue to do it this year, and actually even crowdsource some more good information. And that information is now in College Insights. So when we do a search, and I'm going to do that in a minute, and we look at a college, you can see all the information that the government is telling you the college reported, that the college is reporting, to common data set. And you could also see what information actual parents or families and students got, and say, hey, like, how does this all kind of compare? But now you kind of have more information at your fingertips, and, hopefully this will give you a better information to help you make decisions. Okay, so I wrote down from people who I've been communicating with over the past, month or so, some different student profiles that we helped people with using College Insights. And I'm just going to show you different ways that you can use College Insights. Let me just check if you guys have any big questions. Can you show the Merit Scholarship tab, please? Yes, we will do that. Okay. So there's two sections on the left to College Insights. The top section is if you have specific schools that you're just really interested in digging into, you can put in the specific schools here. So you can, pick anything. I'll pick Drexel again as my sample, just because that's what we're talking about. Okay, and you can pick whatever, 5, 10 of those schools, and just search to see, what information is there on those schools. Or if you don't know what schools you should be looking at, that's the second section. You can search by preferences. And I kind of call this the reverse lookup section. I will actually give credit to somebody who, I actually didn't create that name, but somebody else said to me, oh, I love this. This is like helping me do a reverse lookup. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly what we're trying to do. So the reverse lookup here is kind of like, everybody's always concerned, rightfully so. Did I miss a school that my students should be applying to? And especially, did I miss a school that might actually give them money that's going to help make college more affordable to me? Did we miss finding that school and putting it on their their college list to apply to? That's kind of like always the lingering, fear. Very valid. I should say, and I kind of alluded to, I have 3 kids. 2 of them, one has graduated college. The second one is still in college, but I also have a high school senior, like all of you guys. So I am going through this all the time. And whenever he's a question, we're like, okay, let's look it up. Like, did we miss a school? Let's look it up. So I use this all the time with my own son. Okay, so if you're gonna look at it by the preferences, and to do this reverse lookup, we purposely didn't put in a lot of preferences. You might see that in other college search sites. Does your child, are they looking for a school with or without a Greek, social life? Do they want, some of them are really getting really detailed these days, certain type of food preferences. We actually just made this on the broad side because in the theory, and this is also philosophical, about if you're searching for colleges where you'll get the best merit scholarship or you'll get the best need-based aid, you want to start broad. You want to find out what's the biggest kind of pool of colleges out there, and then start digging down. If you have this lingering fear, or anxiety that, did I miss a school? Well, the way to not miss a school is to start broad and then to narrow down. So if we put in too many of those really narrow preferences, about the social life and about the food and about the dorms, that's going to narrow things back down too fast. We all have to eventually narrow the list down, right? But we don't want to narrow it down too fast before we get to see what the broad pool of possibilities are. So, so for that reason, we only picked the most important preferences that we thought should be used to narrow down a search. One is major. And if your student doesn't have an interest in major, that's fine too. You don't have to, put down a preference here of major. The second is location. And location you can pick in two different ways. One is by these region names, which actually comes from the government, so you can say, I want to look at schools in the Mid-East. And so that obviously clumps together a group of states, or you can pick individual states. So I could say, I want to look at all the schools in the Mid-East, but I'm interested in California. So I can pick a combination of a region and a state at the same time, or just states or just regions. And again, you don't have to pick a region at all. There might be, it's particularly, and I saw some of you guys say that you had students with juniors. You might want to use this very broadly. You might not want to put in a location yet. And you might want to see, hey, what are all the possibilities out there of the schools, regardless of location? And then later I'll go back and filter by location. Okay, so we've got major, we've got location, and the other is school size. I actually even hesitated to include school size on this preferences because I for the same reason, I don't want people to narrow down their thinking too quickly. And if you actually, and I should get these exact numbers, if you looked at the distribution of how many how many schools are, what the size of the schools are, you would find that a lot of schools are actually on the smaller side. They're actually in that, 4,000 undergraduates and lower. Of course, a lot of students are still attracted to the really large schools. That's okay. But by automatically cutting out like schools that are 5,000 and below, then you might miss some schools that, you might open, or your student might open up their mind to consider. So it's here, school size, but if you don't want to use it, it might be interesting to see what type of results you get back without putting in the school size. Okay, so Kathy, you're asking, is the school size filter, says the large option only is 10,000 to 30,000. Can you create one that says 20,000 or less? I'll try. We actually looked at really the distribution of schools, and between 10,000 and 30,000, or 30,000 and above, there's actually not a ton. That's why we kind of broke out the numbers that way. But I will put that on the list. And when we go back and make improvements, and we're making improvements, I will put something more granular at 20,000. Okay. Oh, and last, of course, is test scores. So, and I know this year test scores are, and whether kids should take the test is, of course, completely up in the air. Lots going on, test optional. You can't even take the test. I get that. Again, I have a high school senior, so I've been going through all of that. But when we started this was before the pandemic, we knew that at that time test scores were important. I actually still think that they are important. Maybe they are going to shift in the process, but it's still important to kind of understand, at least up until this year, how schools gave out money, because that's the way the data is based on. And I'm sure we'll be shifting. Schools are going to be shifting this year and going forward about not including test scores or having different ways that they're going to give out merit scholarships. But we included the test scores, and we let people filter by both matching a test score to the average and also to the 75th percentile, because that's really the most important. If you have a student and you as a family are looking for schools where that student can find merit scholarships, it's on some ways this, and I'm going to call it a game, the game of merit scholarships is that it's just really understanding what's going on. And it's not, when you understand how the quote game works, it's really not difficult. And hopefully you'll see that today. But so what schools are looking for are students that are at the top of their range of what their normal academic range is at that school, right? They kind of want to kind of almost top load, right, the number of students that they get, because they're all trying to kind of move up in academic, ranking and caliber. So they're willing to say, I'm going to spend money to pull students to my school who are at that top end, who might have looked at my school, but maybe now they'll be looking at it more seriously because I'm going to, attract them with money. So ironically enough, when you look at search sites, they are always providing you with the average SAT, the average GPA, and they don't actually let you search by where your student's going to be in the top. And so if we're going to play this, merit scholarship game, we want to find the schools where your students' stats are going to put them at the top of the range. Simple as that. And quite honestly, the reason why we didn't include GPA here, we have it in the table of the data, is because up until this year, colleges really didn't break out their GPA data in the same detail that they broke out the test data, at least in sources that people could get their hands on. They might obviously have that information within the school, but it wasn't information that was readily available. So, but I can tell you now that the people in the world of college data, they recognize that breaking out schools' GPA is now important, and they will have that for next year, and they're gathering that information like as we speak, because as the tides turns and a lot of schools have gone test optional, the reliance on the GPA is the primary one of it is the top stat that the schools are going to be looking at. And I'm sure from what happens this year to the data that we get for next year, we will have much more breakdown into schools, the top 10% GPA, 25% percentile, and more detail along that way, which we will incorporate into this tool. Okay. So the first profile I'm going to do is somebody who said that their student is a finance. Actually, this is all the information they gave me, was their student wants to be a finance major. They want to find schools on the East Coast. Kind of broad. That's okay. So we're going to go and put in finance. I'm just going to pick general finance. There's lots of different finance here. And again, you can pick multiple majors if you want. I'm going to pick, they said East Coast. So I'm going to say Midwest. I'm going to say New England. And they said East Coast. So I'm going to say the Southeast. And that's it. They didn't give me any SAT scores or anything, or even GPA. And we're just going to search. Okay, so what came back is an alphabetical listing of schools that have a finance major and that are in those 3 regions that I selected. And I admit that this is kind of data heavy, but we actually did research with members of the Paying for College 101 group, and we asked actually probably 50 people, and these are people who had already gone through the process. What's the most important information what information was most important to you as you went through the process? And this is all of the data. There's a few pieces of data that we didn't include that we think we're going to include next time, but we didn't pick all of these fields like willy-nilly. This is truly based on families that had gone through the process and what they found most valuable in terms of making their decisions. I'm going to really quickly go through this. Some of it is kind of self-explanatory, but and again, this is the combination of those different data sources that I talked to you about. So the first column, we just put these icons. This tells you whether it's a public school or private school. The icon with the columns is a public. The one with a little price tag is a private school. Obviously, the state, the region, the number of undergraduates. We broke out what percent of the school was male versus female. Okay, somebody's asking me, can I enlarge? Let me enlarge. Let's see if I can enlarge. Hold on. Is that helpful? Cassandra, is that helpful? Can you see better now? Hopefully you can. So, we broke out men versus women at the school, student faculty ratio, which gives you, you know, an idea of how large the classes may or may not be. Sophomore retention rate is actually really interesting and really important. So sophomore retention rate is basically how many kids who are freshmen come back for their sophomore year. Kind of important, right? Because if you're seeing, which, you know, Alabama, A&M University, the retention rate is 59%. That would be like something that would, you know, pique my interest to want to dig in a little bit more. Like, why is it 59%? A good and a solid sophomore retention rate is really anything that's like 82% and above. You know, you will see all the highly selective schools are probably like 89 to 92% of, you know, so if you're seeing, so that is something that I would, you know, ask a school about, like, why are a lot of kids starting and then they're not, you know, coming back the next year? Something might be going on there. We also included the 4-year graduation rate. Ironically, I don't know how much of you guys, I hope that parents with seniors are doing a lot of college searching, but a lot of websites give you the 6-year graduation rate. And that's because that's what the government has said is okay. The government has told colleges it's okay that you just quote out the 6-year graduation rate. I'm glad they think it's okay. I don't think it's okay. I think we should be looking at the 4-year graduation rate because as a parent, and if you're concerned, or even, you know, any parent, even if you know, claim you have the money, who wants to pay for a 5th year of school when schools are, you know, in that, you know, 50,000 or above range. So any extra year of that it takes for your student to graduate is going to kind of almost blow your budget and blow the fact that you even tried to get merit scholarships. And that's actually another point, is that merit scholarships usually do not apply to a 5th year. So if your child's going any years past the 4 years, you're paying that at the full rate. So I think it's an important stat to be looking at. That's why I only included the 4-year grad rate. I, again, just think it's something that we should be much more aware of rather than the 6-year graduation rate. And if a school has a low graduation rate, there may actually be there may be good reasons. So I wouldn't completely write them off just because it's low. I would, again, use this information to dig and to find out more. I say the information here is, I would call it directional. It kind of is like, everything is a piece of a puzzle. So if that piece of the puzzle kind of isn't fitting, don't just throw it away. Kind of say, is there a reason why that, you know, Alabama A&M has 6% 4-year graduation rate? You know, I'm going to dig in further. Some of the schools that you find that have lower graduation rates, it's because they might be very heavy in STEM and engineering. Engineering programs do tend to take 5 years. So that might be understandable. Schools that have co-ops tend to the kids are graduating in 5 and 6 years, but they actually might be doing 4 years worth of actual schooling, but it's being spread out. So there are very legitimate reasons why a 4-year graduation rate might be very low. But in some cases, it might be a clue that something isn't going well at the school, and the kids can't graduate in the 4 years because maybe they can't finish up their requirements because the school is cutting back on classes and they don't have they're not giving all the classes that the students need available for their major so that they can graduate on time. Those are the types of clues that I think it's important to pick up on and to dig further. Okay, we're going to keep scrolling. Sorry, I have to get to the bottom. Okay. Okay. So let me go a little faster. So 4-year graduation rate. Here's where we have the average high school GPA. So once you do the search, and all of these columns, you can sort ascending or descending, and I do that a lot. I keep, changing the sort. I would absolutely sort the high school GPA and see where your student is relative to the average that's listed. We have whether the school is requiring the SATs or ACTs. We're kind of trying to keep up on that and updating that as those things change. Here's where we have the average SAT and the 75th percentile SAT, and the same with the ACT and 75th percentile ACT. So if you've done a search and you've included the kids' stats in there, then automatically only the schools within the range that you've given will show up here as matching the 75th percentile or the average. But if you wanted to do this broad range like we did here, we didn't put any of those criteria, you could now sort it and say, okay, let me do this in descending order and see what schools are at the top, and then I can see where my student falls. Okay, the other section here comes to admission rates. So we broke out, actually the first column is the overall admission rate. So, that's the number that gets quoted a lot in the news. We identify whether somebody, a college is early decision. If they are early decision, here we'll take High Point here that's listed. We broke out what the admission rate is specifically for early decision versus the regular decision versus the overall admission rate. And let's do actually a search. Let's sort that because I think some of the numbers will be interesting to see. So these are the schools that have early decision rate. And you can see that in this list already. You can see, let's just look at, I'm just going to pick a school, Stonehill, down here. So Stonehill, their overall admission rate is about 68%. But if you apply early decision, you can really quickly see that there is an advantage to applying early decision for lots of reasons. And we can talk about that another time. But early decision here is, 88% accepted. And I know for a lot of the families here who have high school seniors, most of these deadlines have passed for early decision, but maybe not. There might be some November 15th deadlines. But this is kind of like a heads up for the families with juniors on the call. If your student wants to commit to a school early decision, most likely there is a pretty good admission advantage to doing that. And you'll clearly be able to see through the numbers here what that advantage is. We also broke out if they have an early action deadline and what the numbers are associated with early action. And then you can see, going back to the Stonehill example, their overall admission rate was, I'm going to call it 68%. The early decision admission rate was 88%. They take some students early action. So when you actually are looking at just the students who are getting in regular decisions, so those are the students that are putting in their applications after January 1st, their admission rate is 51%. So depending on what deadline your student goes for, there is advantages or disadvantages from just a pure, admission rate standpoint. And then the other information to look at is what percent of the class is the school filling early, whether they're filling it early action or they're filling it early decision. Stonehill is saying that they fill the class, only 17% of the class, but as you scan this list, you can see that there are other schools that are much more heavily filling the class with early admissions decisions. So let's see, Grove City College, they're filling their class with 50% of their class early decision. RIT, Rochester Institute of Technology, is filling 43 of their percent of the class early decision. Again, this might be information for seniors that might be a tiny bit late, but for juniors, this is really important information as you're kind of planning for next year. Nobody is saying you need to commit, your student needs to commit now what early decision school they might want to go to, but now you know the information is here, and it's something you should consider probably closer to the summer. Okay, continuing on. We have, the app fee. A lot of schools this year are waiving apps, but some of them are still charging. Another way that people have used this is sometimes they want to just see, is there a school that doesn't have any app fee that I could still apply to, and they could sort this by that column. If your family that thinks you're going to have meet financial need. And we can talk about that's a whole different topic about how you figure that out. But if you figured out that you might have the chance of getting need-based aid from a school, then this column is really important. It's what percent of the need does that college meet? So just if you figured out that your financial need is 30,000, then this percentage tells you how much of the 30,000 that school is willing to give you in need-based aid. Obviously, the higher, the better. So again, Stonehill is willing to, if you had 30,000 in financial need, Stonehill is willing to give you 90% of that in need-based aid. Not bad, still leaves you with, money you need to pay, but this column is very important. Again, if you might get need-based aid. My guess is the majority of people here, depending on the school, you're probably not going to get need-based aids, and so you need to look for the merit scholarships. But going back to this crowdsourcing idea of people giving us their information and then us sharing it back, that's what we split the column. There are two columns. One column shows people who shared crowdsourced information and actual college offers, where the offer that they had gotten from the college included need-based money. So if you wanted to look at Muhlenberg, let's say, let's click on this, you'll get a pop-up and it will show you the people, and we only have 2 from this year and 2 from the year before, or from 2 years ago. It will show you what the EFC was of the family who shared the information, what state they're from, what GPA and what test score the student had, what admission cycle they applied, early decision, regular decision, early action, because it might be some interesting things that you see maybe in one deadline phase versus another, they give a different amount of money. And then it shows what the need-based amount was that they received. So again, this is all directional information. As you can see, there's only 2 crowdsourced offers for Muhlenberg. So I wouldn't, make your decision just based on these 2 offers, but it kind of gives you a sense. And you'll see at other schools, we do have a lot more information. And so you might be able to kind of feel more comfortable to say whether or not you want to make a decision based on, what crowdsourced information people provided. Okay. Moving on, and I know you guys have asked questions. Let me go through some of this data, and then I'm going to go back to the questions and answer them after. So the next columns get towards merit scholarships. And somebody asked earlier, and I apologize, I didn't do this. We have these little tabs on top. So the tabs are, if you have your list and you quickly want to say, hey, what schools in the list are test optional? I can just click on that tab, and I know all those schools that are now in this list are test optional. Or if I want to say, hey, what are all the schools that have merit scholarships? I can click on that list. And so now we're looking at just the schools. There's 314 of the 319 that give some sort of merit scholarship. So that's how you can use those tabs on top. And then this last tab here is favorites. So if any school, as you're researching, you say, you know what, that's a school I want my child to look at, or I want to research and go back to it later, all you got to do is heart it, and then it's going to show up in your favorites, and that gets saved if you have an account. And next time you come in, you can kind of look at your favorites, and all the ones that you've hearted will be there. Okay, so this the next 5 columns are related to merit scholarship. So the first column says freshmen without need. So what we did is we wanted to know, of all the students that are attending that school, how many of the students have a financial need and how many of them don't. That kind of, again, these are all clues of a puzzle. That's the way I look at it. What that tells you about the school sometimes is the social economic makeup of the students there. So if a school has a percentage, like Elon, I see here on this list, that 63% of the families there did not have a financial need. And I know we could all raise our hands and shout, what does that mean, not have a financial need? Because we all have a financial need. I don't think there's any family that I know of that says, oh yeah, it's easy to pay for college. I'm not even thinking about it. Of course, we're all stressing about it. And so this term financial need is a little bit of an artificial term. It's really just the term that the colleges use to say, what's your EFC? what is the cost of the school, and is your EFC basically above or below the cost of the school, because the financial need is going to be determined by taking the cost of the school and subtracting your EFC, and whatever that number is that's going to be your need. And so if I'm making up the numbers just for example, if you have an EFC of 50,000 and you're looking at a school and the school costs 30,000, your EFC is above the cost of the school. You do not have any financial need, and so they won't be considering that you have a need for them that that the school needs to help you out with. If it was the reverse, if your EFC is 30,000 and the school costs 50,000, then your financial need is 20,000. And then it's important to go look at that column that we just looked at to say, is the school going to help you with that financial need? And if they are going to help you, what percentage of that financial need are they going to help you with? So that's the quick lesson in financial aid. But so this column is saying what percentage of the students did not, through that quick calculation that I just showed you, did not, or I just explained to you, did not have a financial need. So again, if 63% of the students did not have a financial need, then it's probably tending to be socioeconomically students and families that are families and students that are going to that school that come from, families where they may not still feel comfortable paying the price, but they can probably, most of them might be able to pay more of the full sticker price than at a different school. Okay, that's that column. Next column, find freshmen without need that receive merit aid. So a lot of websites, even if they have this information, they don't provide it this way. I found it was important to know of this population of students that do not have a financial need. So we already determined that the college in theory thinks that they can pay the full price. How many of those students the college still decides to give merit scholarships to? So that's an important number, right? So Elon, I'm just going on with the Elon example, is giving, let's just say, half of the students who don't have a financial need, they're giving half of them some sort of money. In this case, they're giving them on average $6,600. Is that good? Not good? Kind of on the low side, right? Stonehill, you can see, is giving 98% of the families and the students from those families who don't have a financial need, 98% of them, they're giving them some sort of money. And if you look at it, they are giving them on average $21,000. So that's $21,000 is definitely a good amount. You probably won't see an average merit award here that's greater than 30,000. So, but you can now gauge to see what's a decent amount, what's not a decent amount. Then the next column here says the number of different merit scholarships that college might offer. So the college, some colleges have just lots of different names of scholarships. One's called the presidential, they could call it, lots of different names. And it's usually kind of shows you different qualities that they're looking at, or different breakout of academics. And so we just kind of categorize the number. It doesn't really matter that much. What's more interesting or valuable is that if you click, and I'm not going to click because I don't want to pull it away from this, but if we hyperlinked this field, so that it will bring you directly to the page on that college's website that talks about merit scholarships. So it's just a way to make your research faster, quicker, more easier. If you want to specifically, like you might now, based on this search, say, okay, Stonehill is interesting. Now I want to see, what scholarships that they really give, and you can you can click on that and it will bring you directly to the college website. And then the last column here is the crowdsource information. So again, this is information we asked people to share, and they graciously did over the past 2 years, of actual numbers of what colleges offered their student. And in this case, it's any offer that's listed here is an offer where a student received merit scholarships. So again, I told you that there's going to be a range. Some schools we got a little bit of information, some schools we didn't get any, like St. John Fisher College, and other schools we got a lot. So RIT, we have 35 offers. American University, we got 15 down there. Drexel, we got 34. So of course, some of the more popular schools, we've got a lot of people sharing their information. Oh my gosh, I can't believe we're almost at an hour. So I'm just going to click on Rochester, RIT, and you can see we have 3 pages of actual offers from families. Again, it's sorted by EFC. So this is so that you can quickly, if you're a family with a senior, I pray, but hopefully you know what your EFC is by now, and you would quickly kind of say, okay, which family is closest to mine? Let's say I have an EFC of between 30 and 35,000. Now I'm going to see how generous Rochester was, and I'm going to look at maybe some of these offers were influenced a little bit by location because RIT was trying to pull a student from a certain location. It might have been influenced by the SAT. So you can, quickly get a sense of what range the school is offering in their merit scholarships. And so we have, if there's information, we had information from the past admission season and the admission season before that. And hopefully for the people who are juniors, as soon as we get information from this admission season, it will be entered in here. So you'll have 3 years of data. And then the other information we have here is somebody, I think, I don't know, in one of my profiles here, people wanted to know, does the school give AP exams, give credit for the AP exam? Because that's obviously also a way that might help to lower the costs of college. So we've listed whether they give that credit, if they have an honors program, if they have an honors college, if they have a co-op. Personally, I think that people kind of use this information as like secondary searches. It's not the primary way that they're finding the college, but then if they hone in on a few colleges, then they'll start looking at, this other information related to honors and AP credit. Another 2 columns, which people don't use enough, which I personally think is actually really important, is the column about the CSS profile or the non-custodial CSS form if it's required. The reason why, and the way I would use these columns is that it depends on your family situation. For juniors, you may not understand all this yet, but hopefully the seniors do. So if a school is only going to ask for the FAFSA, then it means that they are not they're not looking at any other assets other than what the FAFSA asks for. And the FAFSA does not ask for retirement assets. So it's a narrower view of a family's finances, which for some families might actually be good. And that might be a reason why they only want to look at schools that do not ask for the CSS profile. The CSS profile is asked by like about, I don't know, 300 schools. And these are more of the elite schools. These are schools, honestly, that also have more money to give out. So that's why they're asking more information. And it's a much more, as somebody termed it, it's a financial colonoscopy of your life. And so they are asking for a lot of details on that CSS profile. And it might show that you have more assets than maybe, but they might be assets you can't tap into. So strategically, some families want to avoid a school that's going to ask for the CSS profile. I'm not saying that that's bad or good, but it is strategic to think about it that way. Or at least you want to make sure you have some schools on your child's list that only include FAFSA and don't look at the CSS profile. So that's personally, I think, the value of this column here. And it's important also for families in different, situations, divorced or remarried. So they may need and want to only look at schools that only are looking at the FAFSA. For the same reason, even if you're going to look at a school that's going to ask for the CSS profile, there are some schools, and this is only for the situations if you're divorced, some schools that ask for the CSS profile, but they do not require that the non-custodial parent also fill it out. It's a small number, but that's just another one less hurdle to jump through if you're in that family situation of being divorced and you only want them to look at one parent's finances. So might only apply to a few people or a small population, but to those people, it could be really valuable information. Okay, then the next fields are just, what the actual in-state cost of the school. Obviously, if it's private, in-state, out-of-state is going to be the same. In-state, out-of-state is going to be different for a public school. And then this information here is kind of interesting. I kind of debate whether or not most people are going to look at it, but these columns from average net price all the way up by broken out by the different income levels is from iPads. It's government data. If your family income falls within one of these brackets, this is good information. If your family income is above 110, it's actually not really worthwhile information for you for lots of reasons. Obviously, families with incomes over 110, there are a lot of different income levels above then. So, it's a huge category. But I would really push people, if your income falls below 110, look at this information. If not, if your income's above, then I would just scroll by, not really that valuable. And then the rest of this information is a little bit of information about loans. Again, to me, it's a piece of the puzzle that you should be looking at. So what percentage of the students graduating from that school are graduating with loans, and what's the average size of those loans? Again, a reasonable, these kind of look reasonable, but let's see if I had sorted this by descending, well, okay, not surprising. NYU students are graduating with, probably the highest in this list of loans. It's an expensive school. So I think it's not, the information is not going to be that surprising, but it's kind of worthwhile to look at. And then this other column here is on endowment per school. And that just, again, kind of gives you a sense of how much cushion a school has, especially if all the financial situations going on. With COVID, every school has been impacted. So looking at the endowment per student, again, if I sorted this, you'd probably see a huge range. A lot of the schools quickly showing up right now are fine with the endowment per students, but I'm sure if we go further down, Manhattanville College, has their endowment per student is 13,000. That's a big difference versus, obviously Vanderbilt, which is a much wealthier school. So basically this is telling you kind of how wealthy the school is. And so, which in these times might be something to look at, because it will, if it just is a cushion of, how much the school might need to, or how much, if tuition has gone, if enrollment has gone down, how much is the school going to be okay because they have savings basically to dip into. So I really quickly went through all of these columns. I'm going to go through and just do a few more searches to show you different ways to search. So the first, we just did this one. It was a very general. We just found schools that have a finance major in those locations. That's it. For that person, they could then start digging in. They might start filtering a lot of these columns. They might start hearting some of these schools. They may go back and narrow the size of the school. But that's just one broad way of starting. I'm going to give you another person who asked me to look at, they wanted the East Coast, and student was interested in health science. So let's see. Okay, yep, there it is, health science. They were interested in health science. They wanted the East Coast. So sorry, there's nothing against the West Coast people. I just, maybe a lot of people who responded who were from the East, their kids want to stay now closer to home. And let's put in Southeast. Okay, and then they didn't have a size preference, and their student had a 1340. So let's put in their SAT. So The ranges on the SATs are by 100. So you should pick a range. This person is a 1340. We're picking the range of 1300 to 1400. I'm going to do this search, and then we can go back and say, hey, what if I lower this and said, let's look at 1200 to 1400? Is that going to broaden the number of schools that show up? And it probably will. And because this person is looking for merit scholarships, we're going to find the schools that match these preferences in the SAT range, where the SAT range is at the top of the school's SAT, their top, the 75th percentile. Okay, so with those factors, you can see there's 13 schools that showed up. All those 13 schools give merit scholarships. And, you know, for this person, they would then now kind of look at in more detail at what these schools are, what states are they exactly in. Actually, they also gave me their GPA. So I would then sort this by GPA. Their GPA is a 3.91. This field is really supposed to be unweighted GPA. And I know that I see right here, obviously there's a 4.43. So you'd say if it's unweighted GPA, why is that saying 4.43? And this is actually, my comment here is going to relate to a lot of the data that you might see on here. There are definitely anomalies. There are definitely things that don't look right. If there are, let me know. Here's probably the reason why, if you come across some data that doesn't look right. It is not necessarily a mistake. It is unfortunately just the way the college reported it. So I mentioned earlier that a lot of this is self-reported data from the college. If the college makes a mistake in how they report it, we can't identify that. That mistake flows through, honestly, to all the websites that use the information. So that mistake is going to show up here, and it's going to show up, you know, everywhere else. I'll give you an example. There was somebody messaged me because they were looking at Hampshire College. I can't remember and they were looking at, I know what it was. They were looking at the admission data, and the admission rate said that Hampshire College early decision admitted 300% of the applicants. So obviously that's wrong, right? You can't admit 300% of the applicants. And as we looked into the data, and I showed her, unfortunately, that Hampshire College had shared incorrect information, and I showed her that by pulling up the common data set from Hampshire College, and it was just wrong. So in that case, she's now calling Hampshire College to find out if they will share with her the exact information. But you know, that's unfortunately something that might happen here. So even though this is supposed to be in this high school GPA column, unweighted, obviously Clemson didn't put it in correctly. Again, if you come across that information, contact me, because I do like to double check to make sure we didn't make a mistake. And if we did make a mistake, we're going to kind of keep track of all these things. And if we can reach out to the college directly and correct the information, I would love to do that. So we're all in this together. You're my eyes and ears too. And if you see something that seems a little funny, let me know. We'll, you know, more than happy to do research and find out what's going on. Okay, so going back to this particular case, this student had a 1340. They were interested in health scientists. They wanted schools on the East Coast. They have a GPA of 3.9, which obviously you can quickly see they're going to be fine with all of these schools. So then let's go over to the columns about merit. And what I would do in this case, again, is use my little sorting arrow, and I would sort which of these schools. I sorted on which one is providing the highest or largest average merit scholarship award. You could sort it by which one is giving merit scholarships to most of their students. But because this student, we already narrowed it down to that this student is in the top percentile for these schools, I would say that if anyone's going to get merit, this student has a very, very high likelihood of getting merit. So let's just look at what the dollar amounts are. So Stetson is up there, close to 30,000, Hofstra 24,000, St. Michael's 21,000, Ithaca College 18,000, 17,000. So if these schools were not on this student's list, I would strongly say research them, and you might want to put a few of these on your students list. And again, you can look at these schools and look at the actual crowdsourced information. So the point of these exercises is to, actually, there's a few different ways you can look at it. One is you might want to take the colleges that your student has already narrowed down to and put them in. We'll go back into that top section where you can put in the specific schools, and you just want to verify any of this information. You know, is this a school that's going to give them money? Maybe it isn't a school, but you're still willing to put it on their list. That's okay, as long as you've done the research. The second way to use this tool is to say, hey, is there a school me and my student missed in our research that could be a good school for them and also has the chance of giving us merit scholarships? Let's see, can we at least find one? Maybe we can find two. And are we going to broaden and add those schools to my students list? My philosophy is that you want to have options, right? And you and your student want to have options in the April, May timeframe where they have to make a decision about where they're going to go. You want academic options, meaning, it's okay to put a school on your students list that might be an academic reach, might be, again, that dream school, which I hate using that term, but maybe it's a place that they just always wanted to see if they could get into. Fine, put it on the list, as long as that there are other schools on that list where their student has a solid chance of getting in, and you have a solid chance of paying for it, or at least that you're going to have a solid chance of getting merit scholarships. So you just want to have those options when you make the decision. It's the people and the families that don't have options in the March, April, May timeframe that say, I wish I knew this earlier. I wish I had done this, before January 1st. That's the thing I hate about this process, is it's kind of like a rolling journey. And sometimes when you pass a deadline, you can't go back and say, well, now that I know that, I want to have a redo. I want to do this over. That's unfortunately doesn't happen unless your student wants to take a gap year and do the whole process over. But I have not run into one family. Students might be taking a gap year, but they do not want to do the process over. So, and I don't blame you. So that's my words of wisdom: is you want options. You don't want to kind of be sitting in that situation in the springtime and say, oh boy, I wish we had just put that college on the list, because it would have been interesting to see if you could have gotten merit scholarships. And then you could decide to pick another school. But if the school's not even on the list, you can't make that choice, in the springtime. Okay. Let me switch to look at some of these questions. I have other examples to go to, and I have to say that I didn't even get to the other half, and which I didn't think I would, the other half of the presentation, which just talks about what merit scholarship is and the different types, and that could be for another day. But I knew, particularly for families with seniors, that this is really important to figure out how to use College Insights. And I really encourage, if you have a family with a senior, two big asks. One is, today is November 5th, right? A good chunk of schools with early decisions, those deadlines have passed November 1st. There are some schools with November 15th early decision deadlines. I'm not pushing anybody to make an early decision commitment, because that is a big commitment. But if that's something that maybe your students still thinking about, they have a small window that they can look at. And there's a lot of schools with early action that actually don't have a deadline till November 15th or December 1st. So I say, if it's a school, again, that has, meets some of your students' criteria, and it's a possibility of you getting merit aid, and they have early action, why not add it to the list? Of course, at this point in the process, they might have some extra essays. That's like extra work you'll have to check. But if here would be the ideal case, right, for seniors. If you can find a school that meets your criteria, is going to give merit scholarships, has early action, and maybe doesn't have any extra essays, why not, right? Why not add it to the list? It's just it just opens up the options. You just see what the possibilities are of whether they'll give you money. So I encourage that for seniors. And then the other thing for seniors are that if your student is applying regular decision, you still have plenty of time between now and January 1st to be doing the research and say, hey, the schools that they're applying to are those schools that are going to give them merit scholarships. Just, know it ahead of time. Doesn't mean you're going to scratch that school off the list just because they don't, but just understand which schools have the possibility of giving your student merit scholarships, which don't. Do you have enough schools on the list that have where they might get merit scholarships? And if they don't, then see if you can find one or two schools from College Insights, which you can add to your students list. So, and then for families with juniors, wow, hey, I applaud you for being here early. This is great time to start researching and learning the process. And I would just, have fun with College Insights and just kind of search away and see what schools are out there. And particularly, if your students still figuring out, are they going to take the ACT, if they are, what kind of range do they need to be in order to possibly get a school with merit scholarship. I will say one thing, sorry, I forgot. For the students who do not have ACT, SATs, again, completely understand. How I would use this tool is I would take your GPA and I would convert it to an SAT, ACT range. And I have two sources for you to do that. This is a chart that, can you guys see it? Because I just switched my screen. Can you see this chart? I'm putting the link in here. Okay, thank you, thank you. I never know. Sometimes I switch on Zoom. Sometimes it kind of goes with me. Sometimes it doesn't. So here's a chart. I'll send you guys a follow-up email with it. But here I put it into the chat, which I go to for the people who are asking me, to help them out. I go and I convert the students' GPA to in this case, an ACT range. And then there's a similar chart. Oops, sorry, here. By a website called Prep Scholar. Oops, here, I didn't send that to the right. Here's that URL. And these are two places that I fool around with, and I see what does the GPA convert to in what type of an ACT. And you just kind of, can fool around with the ranges. You can fool around with the ranges of the SAT and ACT, and then you can see, which of the schools are also reporting GPAs, and then where your student is, relative to the GPA that they've reported. So sorry, I always try and do these things quickly, and I feel like I end up talking about a lot of topics. It is over an hour. Let me go back and see if there's any questions that kind of glare out at me. So College Insights is it's costs $24.99, $25 a month. You can only sign up for a month. That's fine. This is meant for you to use as long as you would want, or as little as you want. Again, I'm getting a lot of families with high school seniors that are saying, I only want to use it for a month. That's fine. That makes complete sense. You don't have that much more time where this is actually going to be useful for you. So if you want to sign up and use it for a month, that's great. I wish you the best of luck, and I want you actually to tell me if you sign up and you find, again, one or two schools that you add to the list that have the possibility of giving you money, then I hope that you think your $24.99 was worth it, because I think you'll get an amazing return on that. For families with juniors, you might want to use this for a little bit longer as you're still figuring out. You might want to use it for a month, turn it off, come back in the spring when you're more serious, and turn it on. So lots of different ways about how long you can use this, or use it the shortest possible, which is a month. That's perfectly fine. Oh, wow. Somebody said, I don't know their full name, just SW, already using the tool already. Very helpful. Great. I'm glad to hear that. If you have multiple majors in the filter, does it filter for the schools that offer all, or just any? Kathy, it just filters for a school that offers any of those majors. It's not looking for a school that's going to offer all of the majors that you put in. Let's see. Is there a good place to research how to adjust a weighted GPA to an unweighted GPA? That's a really good question. Our school has weighted GPAs and no school rank. This is from Tiffany. I will look. I really don't know of anything offhand that can help you go from a weighted GPA to an unweighted GPA. And the reason is every school, when they create that weighted GPA, is using different criteria. So I would, Tiffany, go back to the high school and ask them kind of what their weights are. So they must have had a weight for maybe an honors program or an AP program, and ask them what they are. And then if you want to email me, we can figure out how to convert that. Knowing what the weights are, we can try and convert the weighted to an unweighted GPA. So is EFC connected to merit scholarships? It is technically. So for those of you, again, because you might be families with juniors that are on here early, EFC is expected family contribution. it is and it isn't related to merit scholarships. The way it's related to a merit scholarship is that the EFC is going to determine whether or not your family has financial need, right? So the college just wants to know kind of which bucket do you fall in? Are you a family with financial need, or are you a family with no financial need? So that's how the EFC is going to be a part of the merit scholarship. Once they've determined you do not have a financial need, the EFC has nothing to do with whether or not your student gets the merit scholarship. So I hope that makes sense. Just going back to some of these other questions. Okay, good question. If the school is allowing test optional, are students still able to get merit? Yes, they are. It's, again, unfortunately this year, I think this whole test optional and what does it mean, and what if your student doesn't give in a test, but there are students that give in a test score. I think, you know, some schools had no, I mean, basically schools had no choice. They had to go test optional because, you know, students aren't able to get the test. I understand it. I think obviously we all think it's the right thing to do, but on another level, I also think it created another black box in this process. Like, what exactly is going to happen now that the school is test optional, but some schools are sending in, some students are sending in tests and some schools aren't. Some, you know, some schools are saying I'm test optional, but you still need to have the test for merit. So it's like, well, it's a little bit of a mess, even though they tried to do, and they did do the right thing by saying we're test optional. So to your question, Kathleen, if a school is test optional, are students still able to get merit? It is. Yes, the answer is yes, but the way that that's happening is going to be varying school to school, and it's just because each school is handling the situation in their own way. So I guess I would really encourage you, if the school is test optional, to even though College Insights, you know, might say that school gives out merit, which it is, I would then dig in. I would go to the link that we have on College Insights that brings you to the page on the website with the school's scholarships, and just look at how they're talking about merit scholarships, and also reach out to the school. So I would then ask the school, if my student isn't sending in a test score, how exactly are they going to be evaluated for merit scholarships? A lot of colleges are heavily looking now at GPAs, and they are recalculating all of their grids. If the school had a grid or a chart, they are now recalculating and kind of just saying these GPA ranges are, your student will get, you know, 15,000. These GPA ranges, the student will get 20,000. So they are kind of recalculating all of their breakouts that they used to have before, which were a combination of GPA and SAT. So yes, your student can still get merit. I would then just reach out to the school and just get a better, like a more finer understanding of how that school is going through the merit evaluation process. So somebody's asking, Kathleen, if you do all early acceptance and they do not get in, and they defer them to, oh, okay. So I'm interpreting your question about if a students apply early action and they don't get in, are they put into the regular decision pile, or are they given to wait list? And honestly, that is, there could be a lot of different outcomes of early decision. Some schools completely outright from early decision, they reject students. Some schools will defer you, and that means that the student will go into the regular decision process, and some schools will waitlist, but they usually don't waitlist until the regular decision process. My guess is this year, very few schools are going to outrightly reject a student in early action. There's just so much uncertainty about what's happening with the process, with the number of families applying, and what the school's, you know, enrollment numbers are going to be, that there's just no reason for them to like outwardly reject a student unless it's like the student is so clearly out of the range that they would never consider them. But my guess is many more schools from early action and potentially even early decision are going to defer students. It keeps things more. It gives the school more options instead of rejecting too many students. Okay, I'm going to do a few more questions, and I might and then I'm gonna have to finish up around 2 o'clock, but I am more than willing to do this session again. I already got people who requested and said, can you do it in the evening? Absolutely. I've been kind of shifting around doing, I always usually did a lot of evening sessions, but I decided to do some midday sessions. So definitely I'm going to do another evening session. I'll just do another session if people have questions, and you guys can come with questions and we can talk about that. I won't even have to have an agenda. So completely open to doing these more often or with whatever questions you have. So Christine's asking, Christina, do you recommend asking about merit scholarships before the student is accepted or after? Absolutely ask before, no harm. This is, again, my philosophy. You, me, all of us, we are consumers, right? We are footing the bill. If you've got a question, you shouldn't feel badly about calling up the school and asking them, actually, as much as possible, I would encourage your student to do the asking, but there's nothing bad or wrong about asking about the merit scholarships. And I'll tell you why, because some schools, although I have this information here, right? Some schools do not give the detail behind how they give out merit scholarships or all of the different types of merit scholarships that they give out. They want to keep that private, or because they don't want to be held accountable. So so my data, and this is government data and common data set data, might say that school gives out merit scholarships, but then the school doesn't have any of that information on their website. And so absolutely, that's a perfect example when I would have your student call and say, I think you got to the admissions rep that and say, can I find out more information about merit scholarships at your school and how you evaluate them and what the possibilities are? Absolutely do that before your student applies. Somebody's asking, will you do another session on merit aid that you mentioned the topic that you didn't have time to? Absolutely. I'll set up another session. I did this. I did a topic like this on merit aid, I don't know, about 3 weeks ago, where I did both sides of the presentation. I kind of talked about the general information about merit aid, why colleges give it out, how they give it out, different types of merit aid. And then I did about college insights, and oh my God, and people stuck with me, but I went for over 2 hours. So I realized it was too big of a topic. And so I need to break these things up. So I will schedule the other topic on a separate night. You guys can, pick and choose, make garanimals out of this, decide where you want to come and go. But I'll do this again, so you have options of asking questions and hearing information. Do I post the recordings of these sessions? Yes. I always send it to the people who register. You get a link, and I try and do that like the next day. And then usually a week later, because I got other things I got to get back to, but we put these sessions up on YouTube. So they're not meant to be private. So other people can look at them. But you guys, since you registered, you will get the link, fastest. And then eventually everybody else can see it on YouTube. And then we usually post it on Facebook as well. Okay, Nicole is asking, my child took the SAT and did poorly. When is the latest she can retake the SAT for her score to be evaluated for merit? That is a great question. And if people were, as somebody asked earlier, like, should I ask the college these questions about my merit scholarship? This is a great question to ask. I can't say that there is not one answer. There are schools that say, we're going to let you retake the SAT, ACT till February, and we're not going to make the merit decision until February. And then there are other schools that, as they are evaluating your student's application, and as the application deadline came in, that's the test score that they're going to use to evaluate for merit. So that's a really good question. People don't normally ask it. I'm kind of like, I'm thinking in my head, I'm going to save that to share that with other people. That's a question you should go back to the college and ask. And sometimes what happens that the college might accept your student, and then you can still go and ask and say, hey, my student is willing to retake like the test, or now they have the opportunity to take the test when they didn't before. If they take the test and get a better score, is there a possibility of increasing their merit? And there definitely might be that chance. So I love that question. I wish I had like the answer to it. I don't, there's not one answer, but definitely ask the schools that question. Is there a deadline for when my student, needs to give in all of their, particularly their SAT, ACT scores, and is there the opportunity, if they can take it, later, like in December and January, will you reevaluate my student for merit with the new scores? That's a great question. Question, Nana, sorry, if I'm not pronouncing it right, is asking, do you recommend students still take the SAT, ACT to strengthen their application if they are considered average by way of their GPA and course load? Look, I mean, this is the black box that I just talked about now of test optional. This is all I can say is that if colleges truly were not going to consider SAT or ACT scores, then they would have made themselves test blind. And test blind means that even if you sent in the score, they would basically throw it in the garbage and they're not looking at it, okay? Test optional is just that. For the students that are sending it in, the school is probably considering those test scores. For the student that doesn't have it, it doesn't mean that you're in a worse situation, but they are going to rely much more heavily on the GPA. So your question, if your student's applying to a school where they are in the average of the GPA, sure, if you had a test score that was better than the average at that school, it would probably help. Am I telling you to go out and drive hours to find a location that your student can get in to take the test? No. I mean, this is kind of where you have to kind of weigh how much effort you want to put into it. And I think if you said that, it's too much effort for lots of different reasons, I think you would still be fine. What I would actually encourage you to do is to find schools where your student's GPA is not in the average, and at least have those schools on the list. So I would look for some schools where his GPA is at the top of what they're accepting, what the school is accepting, and put those schools on their college list. Again, to me, it just goes back to options. You want to have the range of options, the range from where there's a good certainty that they'll get in with a good certainty of a good money to all the way up to potentially a dream school, and where their chances of getting in are maybe kind of slim, but you just want to kind of throw the dart and see what happens. That's fine as long as you got those backup options. Okay, let's see. Oh, okay. Oh, it's actually 2:02. So I think I'm going to call it an afternoon. It was great being on with everybody. I hope that you got good information. Send me questions. I try and get to as many of them as I can. I will do another session just on the merit piece of the presentation that I didn't even pull up any of the slides to. And I'll do another session on college insights as well. This is important days between now and January 1st. And I want people to be making the best decisions that they can with the best information. And once all these applications are in, we're going to have these same discussions. And then we're going to start talking about all the different offers that are coming in and how you evaluate them and how you negotiate and how you do a financial aid appeal. So that's kind of after January, but from now to January, I'm all here to make sure that you are making the best decisions by putting the best colleges on your students' college lists, because it's like the window is still open, and I want to make sure that everybody maximizes what they can while the window is open. Okay, and so I apologize. Simon said that they didn't realize that this was Eastern time. I will, as I mentioned, if you didn't hear earlier, we're going to repeat this. Well, I'll probably put up a standing meeting. Maybe we'll do this every week. I don't mind. I probably just have to keep it shorter to maybe like the true hour, but that's it. Bye guys. See you soon.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.